Boy, what a mess! This place is crazy. I've got to get organized. Let's talk about organization today. One of the ways that your body is organized is starting at the level of atoms. This is our periodic table. We have 118 elements we've discovered. But out of those, you really only need, for your body, the basic CHNOPS. That stands for carbon, nitrogen, hydrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, and sulfur. Most life boils down to just those elements. There's a few other elements around the way, but those are most of what we're working with. An atom is a basic unit of matter. If you put two or more atoms together, you have a molecule. If you put a few molecules together, you come up with a larger structure. You might end up with a cell. The cell is the basic unit of life. If you put several cells together, you get a tissue. A tissue is a type of structurally similar cells that are close together, that are working together to perform a specific function in an organism. If you connect a bunch of tissues together, you end up with an organ. An organ is like your heart or your stomach or your eyeballs or something like that. And those are a grouping together of two or more tissue types to form an organ. We move beyond that and we have organ systems like your circulatory system, which is your blood and your heart and your veins and your arteries all working together. You have your respiratory system, which is, your throat is part of your respiratory system because it connects down to your lungs, and your diaphragm is working with that to help make sure your lungs open and close. You've got all these things working together to have a body system. And then you put all of these systems and organs and cells and everything together and you end up with an organism, and that is the living thing. So looking at this tree behind me, I can see that it has different tissues too. In the leaves, which are little needle-like things, but these are what the leaves are for this type of plant, they have a lot of green in them. The green tells me that it is designed for making food. Food is made through chloroplasts. The bark doesn't have any green in it. The bark is rough, the bark is thick. The bark is for protecting the tree, keeping it safe from outside invaders. Every cell needs to eat. You and I need to eat, we go get a sandwich. If a single-celled organism like a bacteria needs to eat, it can wrap itself around another organism, wrap itself around a piece of food, and it can eat that. That's the way that it would eat. What would happen if that digestion failed? Would the victim die? Would the organism that ate it die also? Would the organism that was eaten try to escape? What would happen? We call certain parts of the inside of cells organelles, and I want to make clear a difference between organs and organelles. Organs are part of a body system of an organism. Organs are large. Organs are many, many cells working together in the form of tissues that make together an organ. In a cell, you have many, many molecules working together to form some type of compartment, some type of part of the cell that's working toward a specific purpose. We call that an organelle. The difference is an organ is for an organism, an organelle is for inside a cell. There are two organelles inside cells that are really weird. They are a little bit mysterious, they are amazing, and I want to tell you about them now. So these two organelles are called the mitochondria and the chloroplast. Up to this point, we've learned about cells and the insides of cells, and most of the cells that we've looked at have had three things in common. They've had a cell membrane going around the outside. They have had a nucleus, unless it's a unicellular organism, but most of them have a nucleus, especially in your body or in a plant. And then they have cytoplasm, which is the ooey gooey gel-like fluid inside their cell. The strange thing about there are a few strange things about the mitochondria and the chloroplast. They also have a cell membrane going around the outside. They also have these mysterious organelles are the mitochondria and the chloroplast. Now up to this point, as we've been studying cells, we're looking at cells, and most cells have three things in common. They have a cell membrane going around the outside. They have their own DNA, which is the code instructing how to make themselves. And they have cytoplasm, the ooey gooey gel on the inside, kind of the stuff that everything is flowing through. Weird thing about mitochondria and chloroplasts, they also have those things. So the question is, are these cells inside cells? Mysterious. So much about them is like a bacteria that we actually are thinking. One of the big theories about this right now is that they were once their own organism and it was eaten or absorbed somehow by a cell that held on to it and kept it for generations afterwards. This is something that we're still exploring, but imagine this. Imagine you eat a blueberry. No, imagine you ate a blueberry plant. You just put the whole plant in your mouth. You swallowed the plant, and instead of it being digested, it somehow managed to hang on and keep living. It kept living, and it kept making blueberries. You would have blueberries popping out of you for the rest of your life, and you could eat blueberries whenever you wanted. Pretty good deal. So instead of imagining blueberries being produced, think of little packets of sugar. That's what's being produced by the chloroplast inside the cell. So whether it's an algae cell or a plant cell, the chloroplast, little thing like this, little green thing, is going to be producing energy from the sun, combining that energy from the sun with some carbon dioxide from the air and water. It puts them all together and it creates sugar and oxygen. That sugar is food. Either the plant cell eats it or another organism eats it from the plant cell. Why do we eat things? To get energy. But to get energy out of our food, we need to take one more step. Meet the mitochondria. The mighty mitochondria. We call this the powerhouse of the cell. The powerhouse of the cell. It takes in food, breaks it apart, combines it with oxygen, and cranks out some molecules called ATP. And these ATP molecules are little packets of energy that we can break apart later whenever we need to use energy in our body. It's a way of storing energy, almost like a battery. The process that the chloroplast uses to make food is called photosynthesis. The process that the mitochondria uses to get energy out of that food is called cellular respiration. I hope you're noticing that these two chemical reactions are the opposite of each other. They are exactly the reverse. This is how we cycle energy and food in our bodies. Now, cells that need a lot of energy, like a muscle cell, are going to need to have lots of mitochondria. A cell that doesn't need a lot of energy, like maybe a bone cell, are going to have fewer mitochondria. Cells in a plant leaf that need to make a lot of food, absorbing energy from the sun, they're going to have a lot of chloroplasts. Cells that are in the bark of a tree aren't going to have very many chloroplasts. They're not going to be producing any food. We really don't know how the mitochondria and the chloroplast ended up inside other cells, but they have all of this evidence that suggests that they used to be their own organism. They have their own cell membrane, which protects them and keeps them completely separate from what's going on in the rest of the cell. They've got their own DNA. Even when one of your cells divides, the mitochondria that goes into that next cell comes from the other mitochondria that used to be there. It doesn't come from the DNA that's locked in the nucleus. It's completely separate. And that's very strange. It really makes it seem like this was a separate organism at one time. One of those things that makes you wonder.